If you are a man that hates weight cutting, or you've always struggled losing weight, you're a grappler and you'd expect grappling to help with the weight loss a little bit more than it actually has done. Well, in this video I'm going to be talking about some of the things that you may be overlooking, because trust me when I say this, it shouldn't be as hard as a lot of people are making it. And I want you to leave this video and just get really easy results for 95% of the process. Because when you start to miss certain things, you just make it 10 times as hard for yourself. This is me about 6 months ago. As you can see, I'm going to really zoom in on the body type here, the definition. You can see, you know, around 29, 28, 27% body fat. And this was me the 9th of January, yesterday. Right? Not only am I, qualified to talk about this, but I actually coach men that want similar things. But I actually coach men that have got injuries that are still stubborn enough to want physiques like this even though they've got injuries. You might be doing a lot of things right, but a few things you might be missing. So, first and foremost, I'm just going to talk about why blokes seem to get this wrong, right? Is they go straight into thinking salads, chicken, rice, no carbs. They go straight into execution. Right, I'm going to lose weight, Monday comes up, or New Year, or I've got a competition, need to lose weight, and they just go straight into doing a diet without any sort of planning and preparation, right? It's just massively emotionally driven. The second thing is they go into a very large calorie deficit, which tanks performance, tanks mood, makes you hungry all day, affects your sleep, affects your ability to manage stress. A horrible place to be. Most men don't know when to make changes. And when not to make changes as well. And what happens is weeks and months of low performance, right? So again, this video, I want to get you the maximum return for the least amount of effort. That is my whole intention, because think about this. When I'm working with my clients, if they can do this easily, they get a better result. If they find it ridiculously hard, they don't get a ridiculously good result. So it's in my best interest to make it as easy as possible for you. So what I'm going to be covering is the setup principles. Most people skip the setup and go straight to just going diet, salads, no carbs, keto, craziness, intermittent fasting. They just go to a slot a system in without any planning, right? So the setup principles, the execution principles, and when to make changes. Trust me when I say this, lads. There is going to be a lot of gold in this video. There's going to be so much stuff that you thought you were all over that you have missed, right? And again, the goal is to make this as easy as possible, because I want you to effortlessly be able to cut weight and maintain high performance. I want you to be able to cut weight for holidays without any dramas. I don't want you looking out of shape and being unhappy. I want you to have this in your arsenal. It's a superpower. For those that are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Paul Green. I'm a purple belt myself, 7 years of grappling experience. Like I said earlier on, I work with blokes that want to get in the best shape of their lives, and a lot of them come to me with injuries. Rehab the injuries and get them in the best shape of their life. That is literally my job every day. And that's called the longevity program, right? As you can see, I used to be a former British paratrooper and special forces support group operator. Left the army about 14 months ago, and now this is my jam full time. Okay, mindset. Talk a lot about mindset on this program. Massively important part of my program, massively important part of my thinking, probably since my army days, right? But your new 2.0 mindset, forget about everything you know, right? Forget about everything you think you know. Clean slate. Your new goal in this weight cut mission, in this mission to get shredded, whatever your goal is to keep performance as high as possible for as long as possible. Your mindset should be, this should be easy for the first few months. I swear to God, because it's the truth. You shouldn't be suffering at the start. If you are, you're doing something terribly wrong. I want you to go into this process and laugh at yourself that got this wrong for so many years. And I also want you to laugh at others too that continue to get this wrong. It's easy when you know how. Right, the setup. A lot of juice in this, gentlemen. Stick with it. First and foremost, the most skipped thing is numbers. We don't want to make an already emotional situation more emotional by missing a foundation in data. Do a calorie calculator. Get some rough numbers on how much food you need to eat based off your current output. If I asked you, how many times do you grapple per week? How many times do you lift per week? You'd be able to give me them answers. If I asked you, how much food do you eat per week? Well, I had a little bit of this that day. I had a little bit of this that day. Just get a number, right? The number's not that important, right? But it's just so important that you get this number and use it as a foundation. Oi! Create a meal plan around your lifestyle, predominantly with whole foods and macronutrients that you enjoy. If you think it's healthy, but you don't like it, you're not going to stick to it. What I mean specifically by this is, if you don't like chicken and you love beef, choose beef. Have beef. If you don't like fish and you don't like salads, then don't have fish and salads. Choose protein choices that you really enjoy. Choose carbohydrate choices that you really enjoy. Choose fruit and veg in which you really enjoy. It sounds so simple, but again, a lot of blokes get this wrong and they go all healthy and eating salads all the time and just doing stupid shit that they don't actually like doing. Remember, if you don't like the food that you're eating, you're not going to stick to it for very long. Ingredients, shopping list. 10 to 15 items. The reason this is actually quite important is the easier these foods are to prepare, the less friction preparing these meals and eating these meals is going to be for you. And again, if you've got 20 ingredients in one meal, it's just going to be annoying to cook. So you want to create the most simply prepared, effective foods for you to consume. Again, every single one of these is a golden nugget. Like, I'm so passionate about every one of these points, and I say that because I couldn't even tell you which is the most important out of all of these. Next one. No more than a 20% deficit initially. So if you're sitting at 2,600 calories because the amount of your grappling, the amount you're lifting, then reduce that by 260 calories. It might sound trivial, but just think, the nutrient-dense whole foods, the meal plan around your lifestyle, it's going to be enough to see your weight drop off, right? And I'm going to say this point, I haven't even got it in the slides. It's really important. This is another thing that blokes get wrong, is when it's easy at the start, they are that surprised by how easy it is. They ramp it up because they think that it should be difficult. It's like, no, do not make a change if it's getting you results. You want to milk that current plan for as long as possible without making an adjustment. The next thing, carbs are king. Without carbs, you do not have performance. Carbs are the most important macronutrient. Your carb allocation must be half of your total daily calories. The most important thing for performance, high performance, at a time, pre-comp, when you want to keep performance as high as possible because you want to compete to the highest possible standard. 30% protein, 20% fat. Protein's overrated. People think, oh, protein, build muscle. You can't build muscle without carbs because you need the carbs to perform at the highest standard in the gym, to the highest intensities. Yes, of course you need protein. Not as much as everybody thinks. So that's the setup, right? Execution. Again, Reducing friction, making sure this is as easy as possible for you. You've got the meal plan. It's very important that you slot the meals in at the correct times to serve your current demands as best. For example, if you've got a sedentary job that requires a lot of thinking, you might not need a lot of carbohydrates to fuel that day job. So you could probably get away with slotting in high protein, high fat meal while you're working, doing that thinking stuff, the brain food, and then you could start to have one eye on your training session and start thinking about carbohydrates a few hours before and your pre-gym meal and stuff like that. I'm not going to give you examples of foods to eat. There's plenty of meal plans on my channel, but just make sure that the principles are in place. Nutrient timing is actually really important because this is the crazy thing, you can have a nutrient dense meal plan that is ticking all the right boxes, but if you're eating the meals at the wrong time, you're still going to feel like shit. It's crazy that that's the case, but it is the case. I like to split things up into brain food and body food. I like to wake up and I like to do the brain stuff first, the most important thinking tasks that I need to do. What I'm doing with that is water, coffee, for the most part of the morning, and then it hits noon, maybe hits 2 p.m. I'm having some brain food then because I want to continue the brain. I've got clients to adhere to. I need to make sure that I'm at the highest possible thinking standard to solve problems for them. When I then start to think about my own training session, it's now body food. It's now complex and simple carbohydrates that I can digest really well. That's another important point. Simple and complex. Basically, eating carbohydrates in which you can digest really well. For example, me. I would love to be able to eat white potatoes and sweet potatoes and massive amounts of them. Very high fibre, massive portion. I can't. It gives me a stomach ache. So make sure the carbohydrate choice that you are consuming digests for you as an individual really well. Everybody's different, right? Some people can get away with oats. Some people can get away with rice. Me, I love them two carbohydrate choices. Other people can't get away with oats. They give them stomach ache. They take too long to digest just because of the fibre. Make sure that you as an individual can, not what somebody said for you to eat, you need to have a little bit of trial and error, right? Pasta might be a terrible one for you. It might give you gas and all the rest of it. Shouldn't have any of these issues during the day. So make sure you have the ability to dynamically make adjustments as the days go on. Very subtle adjustments though. Prep your meals. If you prep your meals, you save 3 or 4 hours of cooking. Just a big lump, get some music on, and you just head down, cooking your beef, cooking your eggs, cooking your chicken, cooking your rice, doing everything. Fruit and veg, chop it up, put it in a big massive, but absolutely sorted. Everything's done. Your oats are there, mixed berries, happy days, right? And another golden little nugget, if you are a sucker for making bad food decisions on a night, push your first meal back, because time and time again, men can operate on an empty stomach. A lot of blokes I know, a lot of my clients, we like that primal feeling on a morning. We're hydrated, we've had our coffee, we're doing the thinking, we're doing the doing, and we can operate very well on an empty stomach for the most of that morning. However, we cannot operate to the same standard on an empty stomach on an evening. So by just going, okay, well, I'm just gonna operate empty stomach for the morning, and then that gives you the food on the evening. So when the bad intentions are at bay, you've already planned for it. You've got a decent sized meal after your jiu-jitsu session. And then handling adversity. So conducting yourself like the man that is already at your goal weight. Not getting salty when life gets in the way. Just think about the bloke that is at 10% body fat or is at 71 kilos. What would he do? What would he have done? Act like you've already achieved it, and the results will become inevitable. So yeah, here's just a little visual example of the brain food versus the body food. Brain food, basically, priority is not being affected by raising and lowering of blood sugar. Soon as your blood sugar starts to come back down, you start to feel hungry. So, fats and proteins takes ages to digest, keeps hunger levels at bay. You need to slot them meals in when you want hunger to be at bay, but not necessarily up and down of carbohydrates. When performance isn't necessarily needed, it's more mental performance. So brain food is fats and proteins, like beef and eggs. I love that. Delay hunger because it takes that long to digest. And then we've got around training sessions, we need to think carbohydrates. We want glycogen in the muscles, we want blood sugar levels up, and we want to be sending it, whether that's in the weightlifting room, training to a high intensity, or on the mats. Because performance is the priority. Not weight loss is not the priority. Performance is always the priority. There's a way that we can manage both. So, the last part of this puzzle is when to make changes. When your weekly weight doesn't drop from the previous week, and what I'm saying by this is you should be weighing yourself every single morning after you've been to the toilet, and you should pair that up with photos weekly. So you've got 2 layers of data coming in. Don't react to one single data point. Oh, Tuesday, the weight was good. Wednesday, it didn't drop off. Panic, 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 panic. No. Weekly averages. Yeah? So if your weight was floating from 76 to 75, then up to 76, then went down to 74, 73, 72, your weekly average would be whatever, 73 or 74. The next week, you want to see your weekly average. And then you make the adjustment if the weekly average doesn't change from the previous weekly average. So, before I even say this, it's so important that this happens. If your plan is working and it's easy and you're eating a lot of food and you feel great, that you absolutely continue doing everything exactly the same for as long as possible. Most men, when it's easy, they want to ramp up the difficulty levels because they have this misconception that it should be actually really difficult. So they'll ramp up the cardio because it feels easy and they'll make it feel hard. It's like, what are you doing? If it's easy, enjoy the fact that it's easy and look forward to getting an extra few weeks out of this current plan. So, make sure you don't make a change if you don't need to make a change. Milk the life out of it, right? But the first change in which you should make is to add output before you reduce food. What I mean specifically by that is potentially adding 5,000 steps to your day. That's like 30 minutes of walking, brisk walking, 30 minutes of walking every single day. Or adding 20 minutes of cardiovascular training, keeping your heart rate at 120 to 130 beats per minute. The reason there's a strict cardiovascular goalposts is because you don't want to unnecessarily dip into a glycolytic cardiovascular training method. Basically, you don't want to affect your appetite. You want these methods to be very low fatigue. If they're very low fatigue, they're not going to reduce your performance, but they're also not going to unnecessarily make you hungry. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. And I keep saying the same thing. If it's working, don't change it. Don't be an idiot. So you know what to do when to make changes and which changes to make. Add output first before you reduce input. Then once you've added the output, let's say one, don't do both of these at the same time. Just do one of them. Add 5,000 steps. Run it for another couple of weeks. When your weight plateaus again, then add the cardio. Then run that for a couple of weeks. And what you'll find is you've went 10 weeks without reducing the food. And there's a light bulb happening in your head. You're like, oh my God, I'm eating so much food. This is great. The reason you're eating so much food is because you're eating nutrient-dense food. And nutrient-dense food sometimes is very low in calories. It's amazing. So, it leads to the question, when to reduce food? And that is when you've got to look at your day. At some point, you've got to start looking at your day and you've got to think, well, I couldn't actually do another 5,000 steps because the missus wants me to do the school run, blah, 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 blah. And, I can't actually get an extra, 20 minutes of cardio in. So, okay, I'm going to pull food. So, preferably, add the steps, add the cardio, then reduce the food. But sometimes, based off your day, if you're single and you've got a bit more time, you could add steps, add cardio, add steps again, add cardio again, then add cardio again, and you can do cardio as mat time. Then reduce food. So you can basically pull 5 levers of output before you even reduce food once. And that is the great situation. However, everybody's got an individually different, unique situation at home and all the rest of it. So I'll leave you to dynamically make them decisions yourself. If you want me to make them decisions for you, the link is in the description to book on a call with me. jump onto my longevity program. But first and foremost, we need to see whether you're a good fit. The first thing you should reduce from your food when you are pulling food is the niceties. You know, the cheeses, the random bits of peanut butter. Do you know the niceties that you know you don't need, but are just really like the milk? All of these little things are the first things you should take out. And the last thing you should ever touch is your pre and post training meals. The carbohydrates in particular, before and after you train, are the most important things. Remember, high performance is the priority. Gentlemen, that is it from me. Absolute gold dust of the highest order.